is better without. And I have less breakouts when I'm not constantly putting fucking dirt and shit on my face. So yeah. And then I was like, yes. Does it give me that feeling of being more tapped into my energy and alive? Sometimes yes, but I wasn't feeling that today. I wasn't feeling like I needed it for myself. I was feeling uplifted when I looked at myself in the mirror, just the way that my face was. And I think that that's a beautiful gift. And I was like, I am going to hold on to that because I don't get that very often. I know a lot of people struggle with that. But enough of me not wearing makeup. I'm loving my face today. What can I say? It's huge for me. We are getting into a book called When Police Kill by Franklin E. Zimring. And I have a feeling, sneaking suspicion. I mean, I did sift through it. I did read like a few pages here and there. I was like, oh, this is intense. This is good. I want to know more. It's going to be a lot of numbers. It's going to be a lot of statistics. So there's going to be a ton of information. So if you are that kind of person that likes to write down things so you can recall them later, or like mark timestamps in this video when there's a great piece of information that you want to use later, you want to recall that, call back to it. I'm going to read the back, short little blurb, what it's about. Okay. We have When Police Kill is a groundbreaking analysis of the use of lethal force by police in the United States and how the death toll can be reduced. So it is both what the fuck is going on and hopefully have some answers to that question on how we move forward, how we actually make change. As the general public, I feel like we are, losing so many battles of freedom. Because was this country based on freedom? For white people, for white men, white wealthy men, yeah, it sure as shit was. But for everyone else, no, it was not. So this is going to be a trigger warning, definitely. Torture, violence, killing, murder, racial injustice. It's going to be exactly that. So if you're not prepared for that, you don't want this information, you can't handle it mentally, don't watch this book, this reading. Go to another one, something that interests you. But we are going to get into why the fuck the police in the United States are the way they are. Hopefully there's some information here on the history of the systems that are set up, because that would be really interesting. I have a feeling that there will be. So I'm really excited. Are you really excited? I'm really excited. Starting a new book. Woo! Gonna stretch it out. Check out the shirt. It is a stormtrooper in divine outfit. I'm from Baltimore, and John Waters, he wrote, directed Divine and a bunch of other amazing movies and shows, one of which being Hairspray. He's from Baltimore, and yes, this is a very queer stormtrooper in drag, and I love that. I love that for us. And also holding a gun. So I just feel like it was the perfect shirt. Go against the system, fight the system. Who is actually in drag? Is this the person underneath the storm? And they're like, there's drag queens everywhere. The gays are in the military, honey. All right, let's jump right in. So the contents we have here, the preface, it says part 1, which is what we're going to be into for a couple videos, is the character and causes of police killings. The first chapter is the double transformation of police killings in America. Interesting. Second is killings by police, the numbers game. Okay, that sounds fucking horrific. 3, who dies, where, and why. Probably Baltimore. Only in America. Police killings in other modern nations. Yes, compare and contrast. Gotta have it. The problem of police safety. Interesting, okay? I'm not sure what they mean by police safety. Staying safe from the police. Is that what he could mean? Trends over time in killings of and by police in the United States. And finally, we have chapter 7 in part 1, public costs and consequences. Then we get into that all is going to be really intense, but important information to have. It's important for us to hear it, to take it, to internalize it, to understand the police force and the use of lethal force in this country. So part 2, we have prevention and control of police killings. This is what I'm really excited to get into. We have the missing links, reporting, documentation, and evaluation in a federal system, Chapter 8. Chapter 9, we have Mission Impossible, the limits and potential of criminal law and police violence. Number 10, cops and cameras. 11, the heart of the matter, governance and training for local policing. I really want to get into that one. And then we have the 12th and final chapter of this book, American Possibilities, American Limits. All right, I believe I don't even have some water. I'm going to get a little La Croix for myself because I feel like I need something a little bit, what's the right word? Just not just the regular water, something a little more spiffy for myself because this is going to be a tough read. So I want to drink something a little fruity because I'm a little fruity, okay? I'm a big old homo. Yeah. Something a little bubbly. Okay, here we go. Here we go. Let's learn together. Let's do it. Let's get into it. Let's grapple with the reality that is America. Oh! And I shouldn't say America. I understand. It's the United States. Yes. That first hit. Nothing like it. Starbucks coffee. Okay, kids. Are you strapped in? You ready to go? All right, let's take it step by step. One page at a time. In the beginning here, and the copyright was in 2017, so a lot has gone down in the past 6 years. So just keep that in mind as well. For Hans Ziesel, who taught me how, the beginning here. It's kind of a heavy book. You know what, at the beginning when you're like holding it and reading, it feels weird in one side and the other's just like very weighted. Okay, let's start with the preface. The explosion of anger and concern that followed the 2014 shooting of Michael Brown, you remember that? I fucking do, by a local police officer in Ferguson, Missouri. Ferguson. It's there. Was a surprise to the mass media, to public officials, to political leaders, and not least a surprise to scholars and police experts on criminal justice and crime. Here was a civil rights crisis that nobody had seen on the horizon. That's okay. The phenomenon of killings by police in the 21st century as a statistical and public policy mystery. How many such killings take place annually in the United States? Turns out that nobody knew, despite the national estimates provided by 3 different government departments. Okay. We're starting out really fucking strong, aren't we? Because he's right. He's absolutely correct. The general public, the general white public was not aware. And in parentheses here, turns out that nobody knew, despite the national estimates provided by 3 different government departments. So not public knowledge, but can be accessed by the public. I feel like that probably happens a lot in this country. Who gets killed and why? Is this phenomenon a special problem in the United States or a common byproduct of urban policing in modern nations? Are the police also at a substantial risk of death from violent assaults in the United States? If so, why? Has the rate of killings by police been going up in recent years or going down? What about the death rate of police officers over time? What sorts of attacks threaten the lives of police officers? Are those the same sorts of threats that provoke police to shoot in confrontations? Such good questions, and difficult to find concrete answers to. because the internet, while yes, it's readily available at your fingertips, you have answers to everything, you don't always have correct answers. There are just a slew of falsehoods in every article that you read, even if it's just like very slight or like a statistic that could be misleading. To find the real truth, it takes some digging, it takes some research, and I did research this book, and maybe I should just get his whole biography up. I think I'll do that for the next video, so you know what we're reading, and that it can be trusted. You know what I'm saying? But hopefully we will get some concrete truths, real truths, not falsehoods from this book. Most of the empirical questions just mentioned have not been the subject of serious research efforts in the recent past. Exactly. Though a generation ago, scholars and practitioners such as James Fife, Lawrence Sherman, page turn, pardon, and William Geller did important scholarship on the use of deadly force in the United States. But then, excuse me, La Croix, baby. But then fashions changed and police scholars shifted their focus to organizational issues and policy experiments and enforcement strategies. The pressing concern and anger generated by Ferguson was a wake-up call to scholars and policy analysts in American criminal justice. The imposing list of unanswered questions about the character and means of controlling lethal force by police officers requires comprehensive research of quality and relevance. And this is what's so hard to do. Who has the time to do that unless that's your field? But there are people who are out there doing the work, and we can consume that material after they have done the work. The control of police use of lethal violence is thus a policy emergency for scholars as well as for public actors. And this book is my attempt to build a comprehensive study of police use of lethal force in the United States. Let's go, baby. Let's fucking go. I provide in part 1 a survey of the major empirical issues encountered in the current dialogue about killings by police, asking why Ferguson was such a watershed in public concern. I love that. A watershed moment. I just find that it's a word used a lot, or seemingly so, from the last book that we read, Men Explain Things to Me. She used that probably 3 or 5 times, something as a watershed moment in history. And here it is again. This is what scholars are using, people. Ferguson was such a watershed in public concern. What fueled the public perception of police violence after Ferguson as a phenomenon that has become national in scope and focused on civil rights? I ask, how many killings by police happen in the United States every year, and why the statistics have been so poorly collected? What are the circumstances that provoke police to kill? Who is dying, and why is lethal force said to have been required? After surveying the known facts on these issues and proposing ways to address critical unanswered questions, I explore respectfully why the problem of police killings is so much larger in the United States than in other developed nations. The need to protect police officers from life-threatening assaults and the trends over time in killings by police and killings of police. Yes, killings by police and of. That is what I said. Correct. Do you already feel overwhelmed? Because I feel a little bit overwhelmed. Like, this is such a huge project that this man took on. I mean, I can't imagine how many hours, how many years of research he dedicated to putting this comprehensive book together to understand lethal force and to understand the police in the United States. And this is really fucking cool. And I'm excited that we're doing this together. I'm so happy you're here with me. Although my legs are kind of cramping a little bit. I can't get comfortable. I did a little leg workout. I was there for like 2.5 hours. Don't tell your mom. And I am so much goddamn stronger than I give myself credit for. And I'm sorry for the tangent right now. Yes, we're getting back into it. But I just wanted to say I'm proud of myself and I'm excited because I'm going to keep pushing myself and there will be a limit. But right now, I haven't found it. I'm just going up and waiting every single time and I love it. All right, back to it. I then review the economic consequences of killings by police. For example, when police shoot and kill a civilian, how often does local government compensate a victim's family or absorb other costs of the killing? That is something I had not thought about. The questions addressed in the first 7 chapters are interesting and important in their own right, but their answers are essential to choosing appropriate policies. I feel like I am totally going to end up saying police and policies and like switching the two by accident because sometimes my brain works faster than my mouth. Maybe I put that out in the universe and I shouldn't have. Maybe that was my own poor foreshadowing. Policies toward killings by the police. So the data and analysis in part 1 of the book provide a foundation for the policy analysis presented in part 2, as it should be. I love that. In which I discuss 4 different clusters of legal and policy issues that are the necessary elements of a balanced and effective governmental response to killings by police. In Chapter 8, I provide a detailed critique of current federal systems for gathering data on killing and woundings by police, and also of information systems on killing and woundings of police officers in response to what I identify as a flawed complex for aggravating and analyzing, aggregating, not aggravating, there we go, aggregating and analyzing data. I propose a federally sponsored research program that can quickly help to establish standards for police use of deadly force. This is amazing. Like, what? This is so exciting. The discussion in Chapter 9 profiles the current failure of state criminal law enforcement to control police use of lethal violence and includes an outline of a limited but important federal criminal justice program to prosecute police killings beyond legal authority, as well as efforts by police to obstruct the investigation of lethal force events by police departments or prosecutors. In Chapter 10, I consider the growing importance of civilian and police-generated camera devices as a strategy to obtain data on police shootings. Yes. And finally, in Chapter 11, I explore the appropriate content of administrative regulations governing use of lethal force, and I show how the police chief is by far the most important influence on the use of lethal force by police officers. Fabulous. So that is just that deep description, the preface to the chapter is what we're getting into. I shouldn't have just itched my face right there, but it felt really itchy and now it's all red. Whatever. While the empirical research on killings by police in the United States is far from complete, there is substantial evidence now in support of 3 fundamental conclusions. First, police use of lethal force is a very serious national problem in the United States. As many as 1,000 killings a year is neither an isolated phenomenon found in a few communities or departments, nor the result of a small number of problem officers. Second, killings by police are a much larger problem in the United States than in any other developed nation. We have so many issues, y'all. In large part because widespread ownership and use of handguns increases the vulnerability of police to life-threatening assault, or so they say sometimes. Third, police killings are a very specific problem that can be effectively controlled without major changes in the performance or the effectiveness of police. Interesting. Okay. Let's just go on. This is a serious problem we can fix. I love hope. Hope is what we all need. Hope is sexy. Clear administrative restrictions on when police shoot can eliminate 50 to 80% of killings by police without causing substantial risk to the lives of police officers or major changes in how police do their jobs. 1,000 killings a year are not the unavoidable result of community conditions or of the nature of policing in the United States. Interesting assertion. I want to know. I don't know if I believe that last bit yet. When police kill. Part 1. The double transformation of police killings in America. The 15th year of the 21st century was an important time of transition for, this is interesting way to say that, the 15th year, for public awareness of killings by police as an American phenomenon. The shooting of Michael Brown in August was followed by protests and pressure for criminal prosecution of the officer involved. And the angry visibility of the conflict in Ferguson, Missouri, generated sustained national attention. The months after the Ferguson episode saw local killings by police injected into a national conversation about police use of lethal force that was more sustained and intense than any before. Indeed, the small St. Louis, is it raining? Hold on. Oh, it is. I love the sound of the rain. It's raining in my video here in the background, but it's also raining in real life, and that's just superb. Indeed, the small St. Louis suburb of Ferguson appears likely to remain a singular landmark in the problem of police use of lethal force in the United States. Likely to remain a single landmark in the problem. Will it? I don't think that's true anymore. But why? The circumstances of the Michael Brown killing were there's been more after that. You know? Like a lot more that have made national news and made worldwide coverage and been the start of protests all over the world. But this was a huge moment in time, for sure. But why? The circumstances of the Michael Brown killing were typical of police killings rather than singular. The victim was a young African-American man in conflict with a police officer who believed he was being assaulted. Multiple shots were fired by the police. The police and community members at the scene provided conflicting accounts of the events, and a review of the facts under the direction of the local prosecutor produced a decision not to press criminal charges against the police officer. Yeah. Of course. Every element that produced public anger and concern in the reaction to the death of Michael Brown and its aftermath had happened literally hundreds of times before in the decade prior to 2014, almost always without provoking sustained public attention. Yeah. I wonder why. Why this time? Professor Theodore Shaw, in his introduction to the report on Ferguson by the Civil Rights Division of the U.S. Department of Justice, links the event in Ferguson to the recurrent episodes of police killings. Here's the excerpt by this professor. Ferguson did not happen in a vacuum. Police killings of unarmed individuals are unfortunately not uncommon. While the facts of each case are different, there is a numbing familiarity when an unarmed black boy, teenager, or man is killed by a police officer. A well-worn script often unfolds in the aftermath of each death. The police officer recounts a threat to his life, which allegedly includes a weapon. In most instances, state and local authorities do not bring charges against the officer. In the rare circumstance where there is an indictment, the officer is, more often than not, cleared of wrongdoing. End excerpt. The important subtext of Professor Shaw's description is that while episodes, quite like the shooting of Michael Brown, keep happening, killings by police have not, in their long history, attracted sustained attention as a national phenomenon that should be regarded as an important American problem. In this introductory chapter, I pursue two objectives to better understand the problem. I begin by profiling the explosive growth of public concern about the use of deadly force by police after the killings and protests in Ferguson in 2014. I then distinguish between the many circumstances that may require police to threaten or use force and the special character and more restrictive justifications for lethal force. Why 2014? Okay, let's get to some answers. I'm already ready. You've gotten me hype. I've heard the same thing a few times now. We get it. Now give us the answer. Why? There are, in fact, two strikingly different ways to ask the same question about the impact of events in Ferguson, Missouri, and the death of Michael Brown. One is to ask why this all too typical tragedy provoked a firestorm of national attention when so many others had escaped notice. But another way of addressing the puzzle is to ask how a pattern of governmental killing, much larger and much more constant than the notorious practice of capital punishment, stayed a matter of such low visibility for so long in American public opinion. That is bleak. That is upsetting. That should upset you. That should piss you off. And there is a figure here at the top. I'm going to show you executions and reported justifiable killings by police by year 2001 to 2013. Data sources. He has all the sources here. The straight line is executed in the U.S. and the dashed line is killed by police, supposedly justifiably. And here's the comparison of those two lines. As you can see, this straight line is much, much lower. This dashed line of police killings is substantially higher. Substantially higher. I mean, the executed in the U.S. per year is across the board less than 100. And the killed by police is only increasing gradually from a little less than 400 to almost 500 in 2013. And I guarantee it is way fucking higher now. I mean, I can't guarantee that because that's not a fact what I'm saying right there, but the gut feeling is, yeah, it's probably higher now. Okay. I consider police killings in relation to executions because these are the two most prominent types of deliberate killings by agents of government in the United States. Hence the comparison. That makes sense. Figure 1.1, which uses reported justifiable homicide by police to the supplemental homicide reports of the Federal Bureau of Investigation, FBI, shows estimated rates of police killings by year for 2001 to 2013, U.S. Department of Justice, FBI, 2016A. That is in the parentheses where you're getting it from. The figure also shows the much smaller number of executions in the United States during the same period. While the volume of executions shown in the figure is accurate, I argue in Chapter 2 that the much larger number for killings by police is actually less than half the true annual number. Yes, I was wondering if he was going to mention that. Not all police departments report in the SHR program, and nobody audits the accuracy of the data that police departments submit. Fuck, y'all. It's just going to get darker from here, okay? Your eyes, once you hear this information, you can't unhear it. So be prepared to be radicalized. Just saying. Yet the program is thought to include information on a substantial proportion of the total number of police killings, and there is no clear indication that the proportion of page turn events that gets reported has changed over time. But the wide statistical gap that shows in figure 1.1 between state executions and killings by police is actually an understatement of the real difference in death rate. In Chapter 2, I present analysis that supports about 1,000 killings by police occurring each year. More than 20 times the number of executions. More than 20 times. Fuck. The rate of officially estimated civilian killings has been fairly stable over the time period covered in the figure 1.1, so there is no evidence that a sharp upward movement in the volume of civilian deaths drove the increased public concern after Ferguson. And the volume of killings by the police is vastly larger in all years than that of executions, 10 to 20 times that of the latter death toll by 2013. Figure 1-2, which I'm going to show you in a moment, compares trends in police attention to executions to the number of stories involving titles Killings by Police or Police Lethal Force by year for the New York Times from 2001 to 2014, and compares this to the number of stories about the death penalty and executions. Okay, so this is all on the public sphere and just the titles. So we have the straight line is death penalty, capital punishment, and when that is in the headlines. And then we have underneath the dash line, again, is police killings or police shootings. Wow. Okay, and here it is. This is the figure here, this is one we're looking at. So as you can see, the straight line in the media is when it was showing about executions in the headlines. Now, you already know the information and the data from the last page, from that first figure that we saw, and it's substantially less than the amount of killings justifiably, which isn't even the accurate number, but the ones that are reported by police is so much less, but it's being reported on so much more. Now, it is decreasing, right? But you see here, this is less than 50, and this is staying consistent. This is why, people, the general public, don't know, because it's suppression. It's the media. It's not getting the true stories. The death penalty got many times the story volume that police killings did for the first years of the 21st century. A good measure of capital punishment sustained importance as a national issue. Before 2014, when coverage jumped to 71 stories, the New York Times published an average of 16 stories a year about police killings. Only 16. In 2014, for the first time, police killings were given almost as much attention as state executions as a national issue in the New York Times. Yeah, you can see from 2013 to 2014, it actually jumps up above 50. Okay. Figure 1-3 searches for a Ferguson effect, that is in quotes, reporting story volume by month for both the New York Times and the Washington Post for the phrases police shootings and police killings. Okay, so it's for both the New York Times and the Washington Post. Here we go. So I'm looking at it here, and we got our straight line is for the New York Times, and our dash line is for the Washington Post. And the Ferguson killing was between July and September, and then it spikes. Both of these spike in between November all the way to February. So yes, the Ferguson killing was in August. I don't know why. It just didn't say August, so I was like, oh, it's in between those. Like, yeah, I can just in August. So here you go. And then it kind of it goes down again, but then it's higher than it was. So there is a slight Ferguson effect that you can see happening. Like, it tapers off, definitely. It goes down, but it's still more than it was. During the first 7 months of 2014, the number of stories on police shootings averaged fewer than 2 in the Times and fewer than 1 per month in the Post. Then, beginning August 2014, the average volume of stories per month on the topic increased more than 8-fold in both papers. While the increased number of stories on police shootings in 1 month, December, was much higher in both papers, the average frequency, December notwithstanding, was consistently 6 times the pre-August level. In the first months of 2015, the average number of stories appearing in each paper continued to rise from the post-Ferguson averages seen in the latter part of 2014. So media attention increased dramatically and stayed consistently high in the first year after Ferguson, with no indicators of regression to prior levels of inattention. I like that word, inattention. But did this large number of stories reflect a moral panic out of proportion to the problem, or a belated awakening to a major national epidemic that was finally getting the attention it deserved? Fucking national epidemic. We have so many epidemics, it's disturbing. Figure 1.4 provides one approach to addressing this question by comparing the U.S. death toll per year for the 5 years 2008 to 2012 for killings by police and by state execution. Let's get into that one. The figure is once again based on the SHR. Numbers presented in Figure 1. So again, the volume of police killings is understated probably by half. All right, so this is 2008 to 2014. So we have another average annual reported deaths from executions and police killings. Average annually. Here you go. Boom, baby. That's the average. 404 and 44. Big old difference right there. As the figure indicates, the volume of killings by police is about 10 times the volume of state executions in the 5 years beginning in 2008, with the true ratio probably much higher due to the under-reporting inherent to the SHR program. If we are to consider the death toll as an important measure of social costs, then it's not the upsurge in public coverage after Ferguson that seems problematic, but the modest public coverage of police killings prior to 2014. There's the motherfucking problem. There's the problem. And this is why I don't want to pay taxes. Just one of many fucking reasons. Oh, God. I hate it here. This is the bad place. Let me stretch. Get me tight. Okay. The absence of legal scholarship. The published record of legal journals provides another indication of the low visibility of police killings as a focus of critical concern and scholarly activity. A research librarian at the UC Berkeley Law Library reported that the first decade of the 21st century produced a total of 589 articles with terms such as death penalty, execution, and death sentences in their abstracts, an average of 60 articles a year in 470 law journals each year. A research assistant at the same law school examined abstracts in the same list of legal journals for the same decade, 2000 to 2009, for articles with the phrases police use of deadly force, police shootings, and police killings in their contents. For the period from 2000 through 2009, no abstracts were found to present those phrases. I'm so sorry, what? I am so sorry, what? As determined using the same methodology as the earlier study, the astonishing score for legal scholarship on the death penalty as opposed to that on police killings was 589 to 0. My God. I mean, can you blame America? We're founded on violence. We're founded on the torture of anybody who isn't white, cishet, rich male. You know, that's what it is here. We got to change that motherfucker. We got to change, and I feel it coming, and it's going to be long, and it's a war. When the search was expanded to include other analyses on police use of lethal force, a total of 8 articles were found in 2000 to 2010 in law journals in the United States. What? A total of 8? That's it? On average of less than 1 per year. Holy fuck. That's bad. That's bad. So legal commentary and scholarship shows the same lack of sustained attention to police killings than the survey of general media revealed prior to 2013. Now, while the law and practice of capital punishment received the sustained attention it richly deserves, the killings of civilians by police was a non-issue in American legal scholarship for the decade before Professor Shaw told us that police killings occurred with numbing familiarity. Oof. That sentence was not fun. There is, however, one other more helpful parallel between legal scholarship and the general media pattern. Since 2014, the community of legal scholarship has been waking up to the problematic importance of police killings. So the pattern in legal scholarship demonstrates both the very low visibility of the topic until quite recently and the recent end to this era of inattention. But one unfortunate legacy of the inattention to killings by police in the United States is an almost total absence of basic, factual information about the magnitude, the fucking magnitude, causes, costs, and social impacts of the use of deadly force. That's exactly what I was saying. He's like, where are the facts? Oh my God, I'm so excited that we're reading this. This is great. The articles and studies and statistical compilations that must happen in a post-Ferguson environment will have to start from scratch. So many lives lost for what? For what? For fascism, because that's where we're fucking headed. Explaining low visibility. How is it that more than 500 killings each year by police in the United States that are reported, okay, remember to keep that in mind, could become a recurrent phenomenon without attracting substantial attention as a national problem? The angry attention to the subject after August of 2014 tells us that the typical circumstances that produce killings by police are regarded as serious problems once they do receive public attention. So everything that was problematic in 2014 had been part of the thousands of cases that had played out in relative obscurity in earlier times. What was it about police killings that had kept the events and issues now so visible below the threshold where citizens considered them troubling in a national rather than a local problem? To some extent, of course, the extended media coverage of events like Ferguson is itself a cause of higher visibility. So that what kept issues like police killings away from public awareness as a national problem was simply the lack of media attention. But that only restates the puzzle rather than resolves it. I said resolves it. Don't you hate it when that happens, when you read the word like kind of the correct way, but the incorrect way, if you know what I'm saying? Like it is and then solves, but it's resolves, and it totally changes the whole fucking word. English sometimes. Let's all speak Mandarin. I'm serious. We should all learn Mandarin. It makes a little more sense. Yes, the sounds are hard, but they're not the hardest. Okay, you can do it. I got to get back into it. I think I've said that on here once before. What was the cause of the limited media attention before Ferguson to phenomenon like high levels of police use of deadly force? Certainly the killing of a citizen by the police is almost always a noteworthy news event in the locality where it occurs. And such noteworthy events have been happening hundreds of times each year all over the United States. But I think that two elements of American government and attitudes kept the police killings in our communities from being seen as part of a larger national problem. I don't know if he's going to be getting into race too much in this book. And I really hope that he does, because I feel like it's doing this topic a disservice. And this data needs to be explored through that lens. One important element of the low visibility. Wait, before I even go on, maybe there's another book that we can find with that information. I'm sure there is, but this is a great stepping stone to just understanding the social media and the lack of scholarly intrigue, just the reasons behind it. We still haven't figured out why 2014. Though, one important element of the low visibility of police killings is the level of government that is responsible for law enforcement and thus is the center of attention as a government agency when police kill. And yeah, the government don't like that very much. They want you to think the police are your friends. They ain't your friends, baby. Most police, and therefore most police killings, are the responsibility of thousands of different local governments in the United States. Each episode of deadly force therefore begins with a primarily local identity as a news story rather than being seen as a part of a larger national or state phenomenon. So the political disaggregation of the units of government that are responsible for police and their control means each event is far removed from the levels of government that most people relate to when considering national problems. Yeah, okay, it's like compartmentalizing the government. It's like you almost don't see them as the government, but they are. A shooting in Ferguson, Missouri is a Ferguson's problem, and that event doesn't seem closely connected to a killing in Los Angeles or Seattle. The same levels of local government that control police and county sheriffs restrict observers from generalizing the issue to one of state and national concern. A killing by police is a news story, but a local news story. The local nature of governmental responsibility for police has a pervasive influence on what types of information are available about police killings and where it is available. The agency of government that collects information about police killings is the local police department. The local police department. We're getting in the fucking know right now. Okay, this is the Know Club. We are getting to the nitty gritty and we're going to educate ourselves. God damn it. Because clearly our government does not want us educated. And any quality control on information about police killings must also happen at the local government level. The numbers and descriptions of police killings that add locally provided data into aggregated estimates of statewide or national totals are totally dependent on the quality of the local agencies. Fact-checking is not typical and all often not possible. Well, isn't that fucking great news? There may also be a perception in government, media, and political opinion that each violent episode involving police use of deadly force is an individual drama rather than a part of a larger expression of governmental policy. Perhaps this is a part of the American individualism. You know, it's their problem. It's not mine. I'm only thinking about myself. That's in their state. That's in their county. Not over here. Not us. We don't do that. It's not a part of a bigger issue. Perhaps. Officer Smith confronts Citizen Jones and this is just random people. Officer Smith confronts Citizen Jones and shoots him when Jones makes a threatening gesture. The incident is seen as an individual drama featuring its protagonists rather than as a part of a set of larger governmental policies that apply to hundreds of different conflicts that produce attacks. By contrast, when the state of Texas conducts an execution, for all the talk of closure for victims' families and community values, agencies of government are of dominant importance in the process of taking life, and observers see every execution as obviously part of a larger policy than the state is actively pursuing. Because the events that provoke police to respond with force are not unusually planned, not usually planned by the officers or by the police force, the link between governmental policy choices and circumstances that produce police killings may go unexamined in public perception. So, the political disaggregation of power over police makes it difficult to associate police killings with larger political entities such as state and national government, and it also discourages the adding up of the multitude of individual killings across the 50 states into a larger aggregate. When a killing happens in Ferguson, Missouri, we don't insist on knowing how many Americans or how many citizens of California are killed annually by police, because we assume that police killings are the responsibility of state or federal government. Okay, interesting. So, and we also are inclined to see individual episodes of police violence as singular dramas rather than recurrent events dominated by government policy choices. When an execution takes place in Texas, everybody knows that Texas is conducting the killing and is accountable for its consequences. When Officer Smith kills Citizen Jones on a city street in Dallas, it is Officer Smith rather than any larger governmental organization that is the dominant agency in the public perception. And Officer Smith becomes the primary repository for credit or blame. Very wise, very fucking wise, and that makes so much sense. And he put that beautifully. Now I know. The public perception of it all. The consequences of non-aggregation. The now infamous 2014 shooting of Michael Brown provides a good example of the individual drama focus and its effects. Michael Brown and Officer Darren Wilson both became national celebrities in the aftermath of the events of August 2014. Other cases of police violence, such as the death of Eric Gardner in New York City and Freddie Gray in Baltimore, were linked to the Brown case in media discussion. But there was very little or no discussion in what the Associated Press called, quote, the top news story of 2014, end quote, of the total number of killings by police in Ferguson, Missouri in 2014, or in the state of Missouri, or in the United States as a whole. The killings were not added up and determined to be examples of a larger national problem, and the preferences and policies that have had a continuing influence in a large number of cases did not become an important part of the conversation. We really need to start asking the important questions. People in power just will not do it. They will not do it. The lessons of Rodney King. Whatever the... Oh, it's getting to my time. My time where I'm going to make dinner and eat it and enjoy it. Give me 1 sec. How good is this book, though? How fucking great is this knowledge right here? I feel 10 times wiser than I did when I started this. And it just makes it makes things so crystal clear, and I just understand more. I'm really excited to continue, but I am going to actually stop right here. My apologies, but we're going to stop on page 12, and we're going to get into the lessons of Rodney King. I have a feeling, because this is like a... Damn, this book is good. This book is good. It's like large. You know what I mean? It's not like a cute little nugget. We're going to be going through this material for quite some time. And I'm really excited that we're doing this together. I don't know why I'm so thrilled with being able... You know what it is? This feels like freedom. Being able to have access and giving myself the time, which is sacrificing other things in my life, to take in this information, to understand it, to, just the fact that I can seek this out and I can have it. That's one piece of the freedom. But then actually having the time to do it, that's another piece of freedom. And then getting to be able to understand it comprehensively, that's another piece of freedom. Using my voice, that's all a part of freedom. And so in this moment, I get so excited because what I'm experiencing is really hopeful. And some of it I gifted myself this experience, but I'm also privileged enough to do this right now. And thank you, Franklin E. Zimring, for doing all this research, because clearly it was not being done. And Yeah, I feel like this whole book, I'm just going to be gobsmacked. So we're going to stop here. I hope you got some important facts, some important data. You can write that down. You can bring it up at the bar. Tell somebody about it. Use your voice. Share the information, because I have a sneaking suspicion that this author would want you to know this information, which is why he painstakingly put so much time and effort into putting it together. So let's continue tomorrow. Page 12, Lessons of Rodney King. Oh, I'm excited. Okay. Thank you for staying in the know with me. My name is Anna, and I will see you tomorrow at around 9 p.m., give or take a few minutes. I got to figure out the water situation and might have some technical issues, but I will see you tomorrow. Have a great day, afternoon, evening. Bye.